needs to be studied in universities. I don't believe in much, but I believe in the black wife effect, and soon you will too. Enter the black wife, which I do every chance I get. You can't tell me that's not a miracle. You can't tell me that's not an improvement. What? Dude, night and day. And I'm not just talking about our skin colors. The black wife effect, give it the Pulitzer, give it the Nobel Prize, give it an Oscar, give it a Tony, make it an EGOT. Black wife effect, man.
So in 2024, we have the internet going wild, yet and still over
Are these 5 feminizing foods in your kitchen? Let's uncover the foods no man over 40 should.
white men.
The black wife effect is real. Okay, this is something that needs to be studied in universities. I don't believe in much, but I believe in the black wife effect, and soon you will too. Enter the black wife, which I do every chance I get. You can't tell me that's not a miracle. You can't tell me that's not an improvement. What? Dude, night and day. And I'm not just talking about our skin colors. The black wife effect, give it the Pulitzer, give it the Nobel Prize, give it an Oscar, give it a Tony, make it an EGOT. Black wife effect, man.
So in 2024, we have the internet going wild, yet and still over black women and white men marrying. So much so that this was a trend that took TikTok by storm. I mean, I saw video after video after video of white men in particular and non-black men post their experience before black woman and their experience after black woman. And what you generally saw was, the same trend. These white men who kind of looked disheveled, looked like they didn't know how to put themselves together, looked like they didn't really shower all the time. And then after the black wife, they took a shower. They put on something outside other than a t-shirt. Right? It's like they are more put together. So there's this consistent theme that you see throughout all these videos. Now, the only thing about these trends that can be a little bit concerning is that they have the propensity of making things appear more common or more likely than they actually are, right? I mean, if you go onto TikTok, you may assume that, almost 50% or more and more people are dating and swirling, and you might actually think that this is quite common. But yet and still in the United States of America, a generous estimate is that about 3% of white men currently have a black wife. That's being generous, right? Some numbers say that it is low as 1%, but anywhere between 1 to 3% of white men in America having a black wife, that is a incredibly small minority. Now, why is that important? I think it's important to understand why decades upon decades upon decades after Loving versus Virginia, and there being an aggressive push in media and different outlets to promote interracial relationships, to promote, more of a multicultural point of view, why decades later, it's still a very small percentage of interracial couples, specifically white men and black women, who actually exist. It's important to understand why. And I think there's a couple of factors to this, right? Some of it is just proximity. There are still towns that are incredibly segregated. All black towns, all white towns, and people just don't really mix on that level. So there is sometimes, a proximity issue. There's also the class distinction. But another elephant in the room that still goes on is just preference, or in some cases, downright racism. And the thing about these TikTok relationships and these really cute viral couples and these social media love stories, the danger to me is that they really do a poor job at looking at the complexities of an interracial relationship in 2024. And here is why. At a time where you have a pretty large fraction of white Americans who are feeling more displaced, who are in fear that their birth rate is dropping and that they are slowly becoming less and less of the majority population, and that they essentially feel like they are losing their rights, the rights that they were, entitled to through different things, through multiculturalism, through immigration, through a declining economy, through a government essentially that they don't think works for them. This is the cultural backdrop of 2024. Not all white men out there are looking to have a Black wife. Not all white men out there are even really excited or happy about the idea of there being any kind of multicultural setting in America. Some actually want to go back to a pre-multicultural America and much prefer to push for a white ethno state, much prefer to push for essentially a white America. This is happening right now. And so the problem is, you have these little cute Instagram stories, TikTok stories going on where young, impressionable Black women see it, and they are fully, completely disconnected from the reality that there are also white people out there who want nothing to do with them. And some of these white people can be very, open and quite obvious about their point of view, but some of them are a lot more quiet and insidious. And some of them actually target Black women and do really dangerous things to them. This is why I think we continue to see Black women come up missing, unfortunately. They go on dates, they may have a date with, meet somebody online or, link up, whatever, online dating, and they end up missing or they end up dead on the first date or on the second date early on. We're seeing this over and over again. It's like some of these ladies are completely and totally unaware that not all white guys out there are proud or excited at the idea of having a Black wife.
What's wrong with race mixing? I just don't like it. I'm just against it. Honestly, I think people should stick with their own. I think you should stick with your own kind. Not because I hate other races, but just because I want to be me. I want to be my race, and I want my wife to be my race, and I want my kids to be my race. And I think people generally should do that. It's in my opinion, a huge repudiation of who you are to marry outside your race. I mean, like it or not, your race is part of your identity. It's who you are. I want white kids. I want my kids to look like me. I want my kids to have my features. I want them to have my thick brown head of hair. I want them to have my piercing green eyes. I want them to have my thick eyebrows. I want my sons to have a mustache when they're 5, like I did. I want them to have fair skin. I want them to be me. I want them to be like me.
And even those who don't necessarily align are very open-minded. They likely have somebody in their family or somebody they know that is not open-minded, that is extremist. I have white friends that I know personally who have told me, oh yeah, my grandfather, oh yeah, my grandmother, oh yeah, my parent, oh yeah, this. Like they, even if they themselves do not align with racist or hateful rhetoric, they fully know somebody in their immediate circle who does. So it's like there's really no escaping this. And I think because people can go online and see this stuff and think it's hecka cute and then not hear the other side, that like, hey, there is this other really uncomfortable side going on that you just need to be aware about. I think it creates an environment for Black women to, they not only do they kind of fantasize about these different relationships, but it's almost like they take all their guards down. It's like some of the different boundaries they may have if they're dating a Black man, it's almost like they can go out the door if it's a white man because it just seems so cute. It just seems so exciting. It seems like it's a novelty. And unfortunately, this can make women of color, Black women in particular, an easy target in this particular climate when you literally have people who are pushing and hoping to galvanize and hoping to really play off of the discontent that more people are feeling in this economy and using race as the defining factor. So again, my issue is not the interracial dating or marriage. If two people fall in love of a different ethnicity or race, like I said, I have Personally, I have no issue with that. But it's important to be realistic about what that means. And it's not necessarily always a better or a safer option, especially if you are a Black woman or a woman of color in the USA in 2024, when white nationalism and neo-Nazism is certainly on the rise, not only in the USA, but just in the West in general, right? And so I think it's just important to be honest about that. And those are the kinds of things that don't really make TikTok. Those are the kinds of conversations that I don't really see going viral and becoming a trend, but it's important to consider and it's important to know. And it's also important to know that just because somebody will have sexual interest in you as a woman, or just because somebody may actually show that they're attracted to you, doesn't mean that they're not racist. There are a ton of racist people out there who hate Black people, who will then go and on their free time and watch Ebony Corn, right? Or go on their free time and just watch all kind of insidious things. Like, it gets weird. So I think sometimes women think, oh, just because a guy is attracted to you or shows sexual interest, that he may not have racist ideologies, he may not hate you. And that's not true. In fact, there are actually some people who like, they really hate Black women and they kind of get off on sexualizing Black women and then doing all kind of mean, insidious things to them. And you know, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, or I don't want to like be a fearmongerer, because I'm not saying that's every person, but it's just important to be aware that that does exist. Like, just don't get so caught up in the fairy tale. To have good boundaries, regardless of the person's race, whether they are in your race or outside your race or whatever. You have to have good boundaries. And it's also good to just be aware that not everything that glitters is gold. Okay. And not everybody out there is happy or proud about the Black wife effect. And please do not go out here and pedestalize a relationship, especially in a interracial relationship, when there are also dangers associated with that. Anyways, y'all, that's what I got. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. For those of you guys who are joining, be sure to like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. I ran across this really strange, interesting article that, I mean, I see this comment right here. It says, that's like holding fried chicken accountable for apartheid. The person was asking if dating a person of color as a white man would help advance anti-racism. There's a couple of things that I'm going to go over so that we can first understand, okay, what is anti-racism? What does that mean? Then I want to go over basically what this person had to say. You know, this was evidently a white man. I think he like left, wrote like a column or something, and it ended up in, I want to say New York Times, and I saw it posted a few other places, and he was basically asking, like, is that the answer? Do I just need to start dating out more, or do I need to make it a point to only date and marry a woman of color? And so that opened up that whole over conversation. And then I want to go over some videos that I saw with respect to, I saw an interracial dating coach, a white man who was basically giving women advice on how to land white men. Really interesting stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go over real quickly this whole idea of like, okay, well, anti-racism, what is that to begin with? Like, what does that even mean? Why is that relevant? So here's just a quick synopsis. This was Cosmopolitan, of course, they brought up this idea of like anti-racism in dating. And they have this whole breakdown of, okay, how to make sure when you're dating, you're not being racist when you're dating. I mean, that's honestly, y'all, I've always said, like, just let people like who they like. Certain things I don't think are that deep. I don't think there's nothing crazy to me. Oh, I just noticed I haven't talked. Did y'all hear anything I said? I've been talking like the last 3 minutes, and I'm like, wait, I don't even think y'all heard me. Did y'all hear anything that I said? Y'all let me know in the comment section. Was I just like talking to myself? I hope you did. If not, I can kind of repeat. Yep. Okay, you hear me now. Okay. Yeah, I was just giving a recap of what was going on. I did that video almost a year ago where I was kind of breaking down this whole idea of like whether or not a person dating interracially automatically means whether it automatically means they are racist or not. And we know that that's not true. And then I said, I ran across this article that was posted. And it was a white man asking whether or not he needed to basically date out in order to end racism. So that's kind of where we're at. But right now, I wanted to just give you guys a quick snapshot of what anti-racism is. Okay, so going back to this article from Cosmopolitan, they're basically breaking down. It says, I know what some of you are thinking. Dating is supposed to be fun and sexy, and trying to decipher whether you may have said something a bit racist between the starter and the main course is not sexy. So it's just basically talking about racism and dating just kind of takes the fun out of the whole thing. Now, so sometimes it's the awkward programming about where you're really from, because saying you're from so-and-so doesn't really cut it. Sometimes it's seemingly never-ending family events where you're forced to endure your date's weird uncle doing their best stand-up routine, which happens to consist of jokes about immigrants or depreciating racial stereotypes. Often it's the overwhelming number of times someone has fetishized you, reducing you to skin color and a body that should feel grateful that it's getting attention in the first place. So again, right here, they're giving you all these different examples of like dating somebody who has racist ideas. Now, I want to assume that, okay, yeah, so this is obviously coming from the perspective of a woman. And I want to assume that this is a woman of color. Would not be surprised if this is a Black woman who was writing this article, because already the first few pages, I'm like, But anyways, so they're giving you a sense of, okay, well, what is anti-racism? How does this show up? What does this mean? So they gave you an example of, okay, how racism can show up in dating. It says, here's how to make sure your dating life is anti-racist. And they tell you, hey, if you want to date and make sure you're not racist, here's what to do. So here it says, before addressing the issue of racism in dating, we have to understand what it means to be anti-racist. Then it says, okay, in his 2019 book, How to Be Anti-Racist, Ibram X. Kendi defines an anti-racist as one who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. He goes on to explain that racism and marriage of racist policies and racist ideas that produces and normalizes racial inequity. So basically just talking about the system of racism, et cetera, et cetera. What does this mean to an average person who isn't an activist, but wants to understand how they can avoid being racist in their dating life? It begins with understanding that the process of being an anti-racist involves unlearning some of your behaviors. It also, I just lost my train of thought. Y'all give me one second. Okay. It begins with understanding that the process of being an anti-racist involves unlearning some of your behaviors. It also means you need to listen to those who have been and continue to be affected, and that you need to listen to understand and not just respond, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, basically it's just going on to try to explain what this is, and what it's defined as is, okay, if you're a person who is actively dating, you want to ensure that just because you're dating somebody outside of your race, you're not also reinforcing racial stereotypes, withholding racist prejudice, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you are, that you are clear on how to undo it. So that's basically what this whole thing is. And I guess anti-racism says, how to date anti-racist way. Let's see. Don't put people in a box. So basically avoid stereotypes. And then just be open. So, I mean, y'all understand. Basically, you understand. This article is just trying to break down, well, what does that mean and how does this show up in dating? And it's this whole idea of dating out in a way that is actively trying to address the problem of racism, when they define racism as, systematic racism, right? A series of different system policies that have been set up. And then the behaviors and the ideas and the stereotypes that are a reflection of that, right? So that's like the breakdown of really what that is. So now I want to take you guys to the part of the column that I saw, where it's basically a white man who's asking like, okay, so do I have to date out to like end racism? Like, is that what I have to do? Let's see. Okay. This one right here. Yeah. So this is like an excerpt from a larger article, but I'm just going to read an abstract of it because, yeah, I think you guys get the point. But this is evidently this is a white man who wrote in it anonymously. He didn't put his name, But he asks, he says, as a white man, can I date women of color to advance my anti-racism? Again, so his idea of like, okay, is me dating out, is that ensure that I'm basically less racist, or that I'm not a racist person, or that I am, you know, fighting the system of racism? That's basically what he's asking. So here it says, okay, I'm a straight white dude and recent college grad who has very progressive beliefs and is looking for a committed partner who in time can equitably raise a family with me. Okay, so already it's like, okay, this is a guy who went to college. And y'all know college is one of the main areas where they push a lot of these new ideas, a lot of these, you know, liberal ideas. I mean, liberalism with respect to everything comes out of college. So it's not surprising to me that he would come out of college and ask this and be like, hey, do I need to kind of push myself into dating people or dating certain races as a way to ensure that I'm helping the society? I'm like, you're only going to really come up with that idea, I feel like, out of college. It says, I have almost zero honest to goodness physical preferences. I've dated women of various shapes and sizes, various skin, hair, and eye colors, etc., and have been attracted to them all. So again, now, without me having met this person, I'm going to assume that perhaps he grew up in a really, really, really diverse environment, because by and large, we know men generally do have preferences. And men of all races generally prefer women of their own particular ways. This isn't really specific to white men, or it's not specific to white men or specific to black men or whatever. Like, men in general tend to have a preference for the people of their own race. That's just, you know what I mean? So for him to say, oh, I don't really have any physical, racial preference or nothing like that, like, that's rare. That's rare, because men of all races generally do. Okay, so it says, here's what's controversial among my friends. I want to prioritize dating women of color. I'm after a cross-cultural relationship. I believe very strongly that one of the main ways to combat racism is through relationships. Part of me thinks that I will always be somewhat disappointed of what ends up becoming one of the most important relationships in my life is with another white person. If someone is a woman of color, that checks a box for me in a real way. I am seeking to be anti-racist in all my relationships. Okay, so it sounds like this particular individual actually doesn't want to date a white person. He says if he was to date and fall in love with a white person, he'd be disappointed. And he hopes that by him, you know, dating and mating and mixing with a woman of color, that he will be one step closer towards dismantling racist or, you know, prejudicial ways, all of that. So, I mean, before I even move on, y'all already know if anybody who's been following me for any length of time knows that I've broken this down at length, that I have to say I disagree with him that the primary way to combat racism is through relationships. I mean, there has been relationships between Black people and white people in America for quite some time, including sexual relationships, particularly Black women and white men. That has been going on since day one, since this has been established. But unfortunately, you had those interracial dynamics, you had those interracial sexual experiences that were actually a part of the racist system that he was talking about. Y'all remember the math problem that I brought up multiple times, between where Thomas Jefferson put together, and he was talking about basically how to like breed out Black people through interracial sex. I also put it like through actually mixing and through getting together. And so, I mean, there's a long, long, long history of people having interracial relationships actually for the purpose of promoting some of these negative racist ideas. So just dating somebody outside of your race or trying to be in a relationship with them does not necessarily mean that you are changing the whole system and that everything's going to be better. No, because sometimes people do that actually as a way to reinforce their own beliefs about their superiority. So, or their own beliefs about inferiority, right? I'll get into that later, but I wanted to I wanted to comment on that. Okay, so let's move on. Here it says, part of the reason that I prioritize it is it's a combat implicit bias, having grown up in a fairly white quasi-rural place. Okay, so I was wrong, because I assumed that maybe he grew up in like a more diverse setting, but he sounds like he actually grew up in a rather white, predominantly white setting. He said, having grown up in a fairly white quasi-rural place, I am dedicated to educating myself on issues of racism, sexism, and other forms of what is that? Kairachi? What? That sounds like a sauce to me. This must be a new term coming out of college. The KYRI. Y'all, I need to look that up. I don't even know what that is. Let me see. That must be some new college term. Oh, okay, it is. Of course it is. Of course it is, y'all. This is a feminist theory. It's a social system or set of connecting social systems built around domination, oppression, and submission. So that's a feminist theory. So that's why I never heard of it. And that's why I'm like, this must be something new. And it likely is. Okay. So he says, another forms, I want to say maybe it's kairockery or kairachi something. Like I said, it sounds like a sauce to me. While also learning from marginalized people. For me, principles lead the way to attractions. I start by eating a food or adopting a habit because it's good for me. And after trying it enough times, I find I really like it for what it is. The same applies to people I'm considering dating. So yeah, and you see this, I see this comment right here. Yeah, facts, the agenda to breed out Black people. That concept has worked in many places around the world. The US is, that's, like I said, that concept has been here since day one, going back to my original point. I'm responding to this comment that I saw. Okay, so basically he's saying, kind of reinforcing why he really is interested in dating and mixing, and why he's thinking that's going to help advance his ideas, and fighting against his own implicit bias. And then he goes on to say, both I and my hypothetical partner of color would be choosing more learning and less comfort, to put forth greater effort and practice more listening than we otherwise would be in a culturally homogenous, committed relationship. And one of the main ways that I hope to combat racism individually is by leveraging my own privilege, economic, family connections, education for people of color, including any biracial children we bring into this world. Here's my question. Despite my well-meaning anti-racist principles, is this preference, as friends have suggested, wrong, insensitive, or somehow itself racist? So that that's basically the question that this man lays out. Again, he says straight white man who just graduated from college, says he's very progressive, and wants to do everything that he can to leverage his privilege to put a woman of color in a better position, and then therefore their biracial children, his hypothetical woman of color and biracial children. So very, very interesting question. As I mentioned before, we know that just by nature of somebody dating and marrying out, that does not mean that they are any less biased, any less prejudiced, or any less racist. In some ways, actually, it can be reinforced, believe it or not. And all you got to do is go check out my playlist. I have a whole interracial relationship divested disasters playlist where I break this down at length, where we see example after example, unfortunately, of people who come in and come into interracial relationships, but use it as a way to reinforce the negative beliefs they've already had. So no, just because you date somebody out doesn't mean that you're necessarily any less prejudiced. Now, this person seems like, from what I can tell, he seems like he's actually like genuinely trying and genuinely wanting to be a part of a larger issue. You know what I mean? And so I can appreciate that. I can appreciate somebody for being like, look, I can recognize that there's some privileges that I have that other people don't have. And I want to, as much as possible, be a part of the solution. So I'm like, I could definitely I could applaud that and be like, okay, that's, that seems genuine. But the issue is, I would also say, is like, don't just assume that just because, for example, this white man, just because you're open to dating or marrying a woman of color, it be a Black woman, Asian woman, Latina, whatever, like, don't assume that they also themselves aren't coming with their own racialized ideas, because they may not be necessarily coming from, they're not like the facilitators of racism or part of that ethnic group, but they still may have racialized ideas about themselves or white people. Case in point, how many Black women do we know who look to white men as a handout, or they look to white men as a level up out of their toxic or hard or, you know, undesirable life situation? That happens all the time. So this question is really interesting to hear. I would argue that he is probably a lot more rare as far as being, first of all, a man who says he has no racial preference. I mean, has little to no preferences with respect to looks and prefers to date outside of his race, because most men, including white men, at least if you look at the stats, right? Men of all races generally do prefer to date women of their own race, and they generally have preferences. But of course, there are always outliers on that. But I wanted to show you guys, you know, just give you a recap of this question. Y'all let me know down in the comment section, what do you think? Do you think overall his take on this is, I mean, well-meaning? Do you think it's legit? Do you think that, look, that actually is at least a step in the right direction for people to seek exclusively to date or marry people outside of their race so that they can be more open-minded, learn about other cultures, and actively attack the biases associated with that? Or do you think this is just going around in circles? Now I want to move you guys. I want to move on to a few other things that I saw with respect to this whole topic of not only interracial dating, but really, I want to turn your attention now to how women look at it, and specifically how women across races, even to this day, look at dating Western men, particularly white men. And going back to what I said before, even in those examples, or those rare examples where there are white men who are exclusively looking to date out because they want to try to advance anti-racism, right? As in the case of this man who left this comment. Even in cases like that, don't assume that just because you're with a woman of color, that she doesn't also have her own racialized ideas, because some of them do. So I'm going to turn your attention now to this video that I saw that I thought was kind of crazy, but also very telling. I don't say crazy. I don't want to say it was crazy, but I think it was just very telling. So right here, this is a coach. I just ran across him just actually today. He is an international dating coach who is out here predominantly teaching probably women of color how to land white men. I mean, he's not going to say that exclusively, although he does have videos where he does say, look, here's how you land a white man. But I want you to notice the difference between what we just read. You had that gentleman before who had that letter and was like, hey, like, is me dating a woman of color, is that going to like advance anti-racism? And then you have this Black woman here who's like, because if you go to her profile, you see she's a Black woman, and she's like, help, I need a rich white man. I'm a single mom with 3 kids. She's like, help, I need a white man to help me. Help, I need a white man to save me from my current scenario. So y'all notice a difference in tone. Y'all notice a difference in tone. And I haven't even watched the video, but going back to what I said before, listen, just because 2 people date interracially does not necessarily mean that they don't always have their own racialized views. And even in those occasions, as in the example of this college-educated white man, right? Even in those examples, if you're a person who's like, hey, I want to use the privilege that I acknowledge that I have as a way to advance society and undermine some of the ills that have been done, even if you want to take that stance, you still got to be mindful that you're not getting with a woman of color who's just looking at you because you're white. Because some of them will do that. Okay, so let's listen to what he has to say with response to this.
I need a rich white man. I have 3 kids. You're going to hear this from me time and time again. Oh, hi, I'm Mark. I'm a dating coach, the owner of International Dating Success. If you're looking for love overseas, this is the place to be. I teach you to date differently than everyone else so that you can find a love that most people won't. This follower of mine says, hey, I'm looking for a rich white man. I have 3 kids. I'm going to say this over and over and over again. The universe returns the energy you put out into it. If you are poor and have 3 kids, the most likely probable energy you get back from the universe is a man that's poor and has 3 kids. If you want something different, you have to have different energy. If you want rich, go work to make yourself rich, and you will attract somebody rich far easier. If you are doing a good job and have a fulfilling life, you'll attract somebody that has a fulfilling life. If you have a horrible life that you're not happy with, you're probably going to attract people that are not happy with their lives. The energy returns the universe you put out. If this makes sense, like and subscribe.
All right. So, I mean, he was really simple, short, to the point. He was like, bruh, I'm sorry. Like, you're not really bringing a good deal. Just saying, like, help, I need a white man because I'm a single mother with 3 kids. So basically, you're trying to find a random white man to like pay your bills? Like, what? No. No, dating should not be a charity case. It should not be a charity case, nor I firmly do not believe that a person shouldn't just be dating somebody or trying to date somebody just because they feel like, crap, I need to do this so I can prove I'm less racist or I'm this. Like, that's insane. That whole idea to me is insane. I'm like, let people like who they like. Okay, like, let people like who they like. There is nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong. I mean, I think it's natural. It's generally natural for men and women who grow up in certain communities to be attracted to the community they grew up in, especially if they have an affinity and a love for that community. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. So he was just like, yeah, no, sorry. You looking for a white man because you're a single mother with 3 kids? No. And like the way he said that was, he was real chill with it. Like, he didn't tear her down or nothing, but he was like, no. I can appreciate that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let me see. Now, this one right here, it says, how to meet a white man. So as I mentioned before, this is a dating coach. I just ran across him today. This is the first time. This thing got over 130, what is it? Over 300,000 likes. Right here, how to read a man. Over 300,000 likes, just how to meet a white man. You got over 50,000 comments. I'm like, these ladies are committed. These ladies are committed. So, okay, let's break this down. Because now on the flip side, now you have this person breaking down, okay, how do you actually meet a white man? My initial thought is, how do you meet a white man? Like, go outside. White men are not hard to find. Like, go outside, touch some grass. You will see a white man. Like, I mean, out here, I live in the United States of America. If you are a Black woman living in the United States of America and you are asking, how do I meet a white man? I need you to leave your block. Just walk at least 2-3 blocks. And I promise you will encounter a white person. Like, they're not hard to find. So I'm like, these questions to me are always so telling. But I also understand if he's dealing with the international audience, maybe if you're dealing with like women from Africa, some women coming from Asia, Latin America, women who are basically looking for white men, that American dollar, then that's different. But I'm like, please, if you are a Black woman, because there are some Black American women who are asking these questions. I'm like, just walk 3 blocks and you will run into a white person. Okay. Drive 5, maybe 10 minutes. Okay. Like, you're just, like, they're not hard to find. White folks are still the majority in the USA. So this shouldn't be up for debate. Okay. Let's see what he has to say.
Best way to meet men on the web. I'm Mark, I'm a dating coach. This is International Dating Success. Like and subscribe for more information on how you could find the perfect overseas and international match. A lot of women come online hoping that they will find the magic connection for them. I think it's important, these 3 tips for how you can best find somebody who will respond to you and might be your magic connection. Number 1, be careful about using social media sites, things like Facebook or things like TikTok. People receive a lot of messages. I would not start off by messaging somebody automatically right away off of TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. I think it's important to go ahead and comment in their threads first. Now, that comment should not be a hey, hi, hello, or a wow. I know that it takes a little bit of time to think of something to say, but actually comment on what the video is about. You know, so many people will respond, hey, hi, wow. Instantly, that's a big turnoff for a lot of white men. Watch the video and say something about the video, not even something about the guy. Do that a couple of times. to get to know and let him see your name there. Now, I know that we wish that we could just pitch out a hey, whoa, wow, hi, handsome, and that will get his attention, but it really doesn't work well. So actually subscribe to people and connect with them a couple times in their comments, and then after about 2 or 3 comments on their threads, then follow up with a message. Number 2, I don't really recommend using TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think it's far better to use something like an actual dating application. And this is where you actually connect to men who are looking for matches too.
Let me just say something real quick as he's breaking stuff down. And honestly, like I said, I just ran across this person's page today. And if I can say, if you are good, listen, if you are a woman of color, a Black woman, whatever, and you are interested in a white man, if you're going to be taking dating advice from somebody, I'm like, okay, if you want a white man, at least listen to him. So I could understand, because this dude has, I think over 300,000 or something followers and stuff. Like, it seems like his page is pretty successful. And I'm like, okay, I understand, because there's women out there who are into white men. So I can understand how, like, okay, if you're a woman who's into a white man, you should listen to a white man saying how to get them. So logically, I'm like, okay, I could see why there would be a market for this. But here's another thing that I noticed, and I can say I tested this out, because he's talking about dating apps. Like, there are certain luxury dating apps out there. For example, I think like Luxy is one of them, for example. That's supposed to be like a quote unquote luxury dating app, where it's women basically who are connecting with men who have a minimum income bracket. So that Luxy dating app is specifically about meeting rich men, and then also it's about promoting interracial relationships, international relationships, right? And so I did this test a few months ago, because I actually got reached out from Luxy app. They were trying to do a sponsorship, and then it ultimately ended up not working out because I wasn't happy with what they were offering. But I did a little test because I wanted to see whether or not the dating app was legit, right? And when I decided to create a little profile, I did it on my phone, so I got all the notifications, but I created a profile, like just to test it out, using some of my husband's information. And he took the most, because the way the app will do it, they'll have you take a picture of yourself or like upload. So he uploads the most. I mean, the picture was dusty. I ain't gonna lie. Like, he just did like a full zoom in on his nose. All you saw was like his nose and his eyes, right? But he uploaded it on this luxury dating app. The picture looked bad, y'all. It was bad. But I created this little profile using my husband's information, just kind of to see, okay, is this legit? Because I wanted to see whether or not I was really going to consider the dating app. And I was so surprised that even with that horrible looking photo, that dusty looking photo of my husband that was uploaded there were countless women reaching out, countless. And I told him, I was like, babe, I know it's about the money, or it must be what they perceive about the money, because I'm like, there's not really any information. There wasn't a ton of information about him on there. Like, we didn't really put his career, nothing. We just put like a dusty photo of his face up there, or like a part of his face, not even the whole thing. And just like some basic, like, made up name or whatever. But nevertheless, there were a ton of international women looking out. And I told him, I was like, dang, like, these women are really thirsty for some American dollars, because I knew he was from America, right? So I'm just saying that because he's over here talking about, he was like, hey, like, honestly, if you want to meet these guys, it's like you're likely to probably do it more so online. It was crazy to see the amount of interest my husband got. And like I said, it was on my phone, so I got all of it. I got people in Spanish. I got people, sending me all kind of different stuff, like, hey, how you doing? Like, just being super flirty. And I'm like, y'all don't even know. They didn't know I was getting the messages, so it was whatever. But it was really crazy to see that. But I also understood, I'm like, oh, because that was an app that is specifically for rich men, it's like, these ladies are looking for that dollar. They are really looking for a better lifestyle. So when ladies are asking this, how do we get a white man? And he's talking about dating apps, like, he's not lying. Like, I've seen with my eyes, like, how much interest and how much activity these men can get when there's a perception that they got money. And a lot of people a lot of women outside of the West in particular, you got like Asian women, African women, these other nations, they assume that white people have money. Because when you go sometimes, when you go to these countries, like for your traveling or whatever, you'll always notice that they oftentimes are marketing to white people. When you go to these countries, particularly where they're big on tourism, they're almost always marketing to white people. So in the minds of the locals there, they're thinking, oh, white people have money. So yeah, so these women, these other countries will be looking for these men. They'll be on social media, sending them DMs on. They're like hungry on these dating sites looking for that American dollar. And even if you're not white, like I said, my husband ran into that, and he's not white, obviously. He's a black man, but because they thought he was American, they were like was deep in his DMs. Really interesting. Okay, let me continue.
You don't have to pay for these subscriptions. These are free sites, and absolutely. My number 3 tip would be definitely to subscribe here and follow along. Give me a DM and let me know. I've got a private group that I'm inviting only a select amount of people to, that we will work on bettering your dating for how you can actually find the match that you're looking for. Please send me a DM and I'll invite you to a private group. It is for money, but
look at those black women. Y'all see, boy, y'all see who he's marketing to?
Have to be willing to
y'all see who he's. Let me go back right there, because it says international dating, but y'all see this white dating coach. I got a private group, select only. Pay me.
Give me a D.
Who he targeting?
Let me know. I've got a private group that I'm inviting.
Who he targeting, y'all?
Select amount of people to, that we will work on bettering your dating for how you can actually find the match that you're looking for. Please send me a DM and I'll invite you to a private group.
Yeah, look, yeah, who is he targeting? Who? Yeah, I'm just not watching this video, so this is my first time seeing it, but I'm like, dang. But also, at the same time, I'm like, listen, if you really are a white woman, a black woman who's into white men, you listening to a white man that probably is the best dating strategy. It's better than listening to these women out here ain't dated in like 20 years or just make up, you know what I mean? Like, y'all listening to women who ain't never been in a long-term relationship, but they got a social media following. So I'm like, if you're going to try to do that whole thing and try to snag a rich man over his money or whatever, if you're gonna do it, I'm like, at least you're better off listening to people from that community. I mean, it may be a scam. It may all be fake, and they may be lying to you. Who knows? But I'm like, logically speaking. But I said, yeah, it's a cash cow anytime you turn. I mean, the way he just dropped that little image in there. Wigs, weaves, and sandals. All wigs, weaves, and sandals. The way he just did that, just so effortlessly. I'm like, now, okay, so now we understand who the target audience is. And I'm really not mad at it. I'm not mad at it, because sometimes as Black women, we make it so easy. Anyway, shout out to you, Dane C. With the 2, it says, Shay, how long? Hey, long time no see, but I watch your uploads. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys are here, like, share, subscribe. Show some love on the Cash App, Venmo. Y'all know the drill. Cash App, Venmo, Super Chat. Okay. You said the white Derek. I don't know if I could really I don't really think there's a comparison in the looks department. I don't think there's a comparison, but he does have the complexion for the protection. I haven't listened to his content enough to know whether or not he's just like deeply, whether or not he's like honest and legitimate, or if he's just pandering. I will say, if we go back to that video where that baby mama was like, help, I need a white man. Help, I need a white man. And he's like, ma'am, the energy you give off. Let me see if I got it. He's like, the energy you give off.
I need a rich white.
This one. So at least he didn't lie to her there. At least he didn't say, oh, white men, any white men, they love single mothers because that means that she can really pour into people. And that means she knows how to really care for people. And that means she has maternal. Like, at least he didn't lie to her. At least he was like, you're going to attract what you are. That's basically what he said. So at least in that video, he wasn't lying. So I'm not as familiar with his content. You know what I mean? Like I said, I just ran across it. But there is a market. So So, I mean, I didn't have, I really didn't have a ton else to add. I just ran across the article. For those of you guys who are catching on, I ran across the article where it was basically he was a young, I guess it was a Gen Zer, because the article just posted a few weeks ago. And he said, I think he just got out of college and he was like, a conservative, really liberal, straight white man who wanted to use his privilege to advance the lifestyle and improve the lifestyle of women of color, and was trying to figure out how he could do that and whether or not that was right of him or not right of him. Right. And so I was like, okay, like listening to his breakdown, I'm like, I feel like he was pretty genuine. I'm not, obviously didn't meet him, but it seemed like it was a genuine question. But my thing is we have to really stop the cap on feeling like just because somebody dates or just because somebody is dating somebody who is not black, or just sleeping with somebody, or not black, just because somebody is dating or sleeping with somebody of another race means that they don't have prejudiced or racialized views about that race. Because, and one of those comments I've seen in here alluded to that, like if that was the case, then slavery literally would have never happened. Like if that was the case, there would have never have been chattel slavery. That would have been ended day one. Because they would realize, oh wow, these are human beings. This isn't chattel. This isn't a less than a human. These are human beings. Like that would have happened, but it didn't. So interracial relationships or interracial sex alone doesn't mean anything. Motives really matter. And that's why I started off by playing the video I had posted almost a year ago for y'all, where we looked over, and I just did that live too. Well, I just did a live a few days ago where I'm like, let's look at, unfortunately, some snow bunny sagas and some divested disasters where we see people who got into situationships or relationships and it ended up fatal. But they had very racialized views about themselves. So we already know that's not the case. And we know that there are people out there, there are white men out there who will do the whole fetish thing. And there are women of color out there who will fetishize white men just in the same way. Now, the power dynamic is different. It's a different power dynamic. But we know there is a lot of women of color looking for a white handout. That's, unfortunately, that's what they're doing. And some dudes are aware of it. They're cool with the game. They'll do it. You know what I mean? Like they'll do it. They will do it. But like I said, let's not be confused as to what is going on. So that's what I have. I'm trying to think if I have anything else here. If you guys are just copping on, you can go back and catch the replay. Thought this was a really interesting, it's an interesting question, particularly in 2025, because I'm like, well, anybody who understands American history shouldn't be asking this, but I understand that American history is not always taught. Anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out. And yeah, y'all stay tuned. I know some of you guys are just like, ain't seen me in a while. Y'all, the YouTube notification algorithm, that thing has its own way of doing stuff that a lot of us cannot control, right? So if you want to get access to my videos, be sure to hit the notification button. Also, if you guys become a member, you can become a member for literally like $5. Like if you become a member, you get notified each time I drop a video. You can join my Discord, right? In Discord there, you get automatic updates. And we also have private conversations there and all that stuff. So that's also an option. But thanks for hanging out, guys. And yeah, we'll talk later, okay? Bye.